Alright, you bastards, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today I want to talk about all the uses you can do for survival purposes with a glass bottle. But before we do that, if you're interested in detective stories, the link will be in the link. There will be a description or a link towards my first book called Bloody Crosses. It's in Dutch. If you're interested, take a look, I would say. So, glass bottles. There are so many things you can do this as a prepper, but we live in a society where plastic bottles are cheaper and more commonly used. But I always try to use glass bottles because the I want to do something to the planet with all those plastic. I hate it when I walk around or do a walk and I see plastic bottles at the side of the road that people just throw out of the window. I really hate that. So this is my little part to do something for the nature. So glass bottles, you can return them to the store for some money, or you can just put them in a specific garbage for glass bottles that are being picked up by the municipal. So yeah, um, where was I'm going to make a list about things you can do with glass bottles. First of all, if you're in a survival situation or of a hike or a bug out, or you're stranded and you find a glass bottle, you can boil water with it. So I would say if you fill this up with water, uh, I would say don't put it into the flames and don't put it directly into flames, because otherwise the glass will start to shatter, break, crack, and in worst case explode. So I would say first open the bottle that it will not get under pressure and explode. If you have a fire, put it near the fire with one side, put it in the ashes, but not directly in the fire. If it starts to boil, you will notice that it will start to boil to one side. But that will boil the rest. There's no need that you will have to keep turning around because you think it only boils to one side. But yeah, that's something that you can do in a survival situation. Um, you can make weapons out of it. If you got some glass, if you find some glass, you can make arrow. If you break the glass, you take the pieces and you carve them into an arrowhead. You can make arrows in the wild that are very sharp. You can make glass blades or spears from these parts, or you can use it as a weapon. We all know if there is a situation you're in a bar or at a restaurant or wherever you are, there is somebody uh, attacking other people. You can just take a bottle, crash it, and use the handle and the sharp points as a stabbing weapon in self-defense. Of course, I need to be sure, or just whack him on the head. I know, sounds blasé, but it's one of the things that you can use it. Or if you're in a bug out, a hike, or whatever, and you find a source of water, and you can fill this glass bottle with it, and you have a carrying container for that is sturdy for carrying water during your bug out or your whatever where you're stranded in a survival situation. So that's another thing you can do. If you find a bottle without the cap, just put something in. You can make a cork out of grass. You can make a cork out of pineapples, cones that you can plug in if you do not want to get the water out of it while transporting it in your bag. Another thing is making fire. It's very difficult. Many people will underestimate it, but if you fill this bottle with water, you can use the sun as a magnifying glass and trying to make water. But you have to have full sun. You got to have a right bottle because some bottles are perhaps too thick or they are too weird of a shape to get the sun centralized in one flaming hot point. But it's not that easy as you think, but it's possible, and that's very important. As long as if there is a possibility, there is hope. Another thing is you can make an oil lamp out of it. Think I've done this in a few videos. You can just fill this up with oil that you used, like if you have leftovers from olive oil from baking that you cannot just throw away because of the plants, or some other proper place where you can do it away. What I would do is, I if you have a bottle, you fill it up with oil. You can take the cap, make a hole in it, or you can just do it like this. put some cotton wick in it, or just a regular wick or a cotton wick, or you can cut up some cotton from old clothing, put it in, let it soak in, light it on, and then you have some way to make a improvised oil lamp with it. Be very careful that you will not knock the lamp over. I would not advise to use something else than oils, because if you use something more flammable like alcohol or gasoline and you use it as a candle, it will get too hot, explode, and you will have a fire inside of your house, or when you knock it over, it can be very dangerous. So I would advise, if you make a candle, only do it with oil. Talking about alcohol, you can also use this in the process of making alcohol for several reasons. You can just, if you have something of sugars or some other things like fruits that you will want to ferment, you can use a bottle. If you're going to use a bottle to ferment the sugars from plants or from fruits, if you have one of those screw caps, put a screw cap on it, but just enough room that air can flow out from the gases that are being produced, that they will not start to pop out, but enough space that oxygen is difficult to get in, but it's possible by overpressure that it can blow out. What you also can do is make a very, very tiny hole with the needle in the cap, and that is enough that oxygen will almost not get in, but the overpressure from the gases produced will be able to leave. And because if it's a small hole and the gases leave, is a constant, because it's always under pressure. There is no way that oxygen can get in once the fermentation process has started. Another thing is food storage. If you got some foods that are mushed up, you can even use some pickled foods. You can use it as a storage, these bottles, but it has to be many small foods like those tiny pickled onions that you can put it. As long as it fits through this, you can pickle it, but can also be annoying to get out. Another thing you can do is a candle holder. I think I have one of those longer candles around here. If you ever seen one of those old movies, you will see that they use candles and they put it inside on top of the candles. There are several reasons for this. One, they used to the most of the candles were something like this. Second, if you scave a little bit of this, it will fit very deeply into the bottle, and that's important because that it will get stuck inside of it very good, because otherwise it just be able to fall out, and that's the purpose of a candle holder, that the candle will not fall and cause a fire inside of your house. Another thing is, if you do it like this, it's just a little bit too thick, because this is one of those rum bottles that is very small. In a regular bottle, it would probably fit, and especially if you cover it a little bit. So another thing is, if the candle wax is dripping down, because it's a high bottle, that by the time it will get down, it will be cooled off and not reach the ground. If you put a lower candle holder, it will get all around it, but here all the wax will be caught up by the height of the bottle, and you can still scrape it off and reuse that wax to make a new candle, and it's a little bit more safe that way. What you also can do is, if you can cut the glass. I would say, if you're going to cut the glass, do it underwater. Put it inside of it, and then you have some candle holder inside of the bottle, but make sure that oxygen can reach it from beneath it if you're going to carve it. But it's a nice way to make a candle, but beware that it will get very hot, because the glass will conduct the heat. Alright, next thing is a Molotov. A Molotov, in case if you have to make an improvised weapon to stop if there is an invasion power, some army is invading your country. We saw this in the Ukraine. If you want, I do not condone using the use of Molotov cocktails, but sometimes you got to have improvised weapons to fight against the aggressors that are invading your country. So what you can do is, I don't know if this is legal to say, but I've done some tests with Molotovs, and that's another reason I made a video about Marseille soap or some other soaps. if you mix soap shavings with gasoline, you can get a mixture that is very flammable and will stick. So I would not advise to use just gasoline or alcohol and a rag to that you will throw. But yeah, I will not say any more further because this could get me into trouble by saying this. It's something, but it's a more delicate process than just putting in something flammable in it and a rag and throw it away, because yeah, it's more delicate than that. uh, Alarm system. You can use bottles in different ways to make alarm system. You can put this on the door handles of your house, and if somebody tries to get in, it will fall down, make a huge clang, and it will wake you up. Same thing goes if you put a bottle up behind the door and then put it a little bit on its side with something like a rock beneath it, so it's just tipping over. Somebody open the door and it will fall down and start to clattering and make some noise. The same thing goes if you put some pebbles inside of it. It will even make more noise when it starts to clangling. You can put some pebbles inside of it, hang it onto a fence. If somebody messes with the fence, it will start to perhaps move and it can clang, but that's less effective, I would say. And yeah, that's another way you can do it. Another thing is you can use it as a water a system to water your plants. If you have a bottle with a cap on the top of it, make a few holes, very small holes into the cap, fill it with water, and put it in the ground like this. And because there's two small holes, it will constantly be drawn from the dripping holes, and it will constantly put some water inside of your soil. And that's just the way like the Sumerian farmers used to water their grounds, by using terracotta pots. But the same thing can be used with glass bottles in the ground with small holes in the cap, and that way you can conserve some water, or use it more effectively, because it's closer to the actual plants and not just spraying water all around. uh, Another thing is you can use a glass bottle as a fire extinguisher. And yeah, how there is a certain chemical mixture. I think it's something with has to do with vinegar and I think baking soda. I would say look this up because I probably have messed this up because I have forgotten what it exactly was. But those two mixtures can make something some at the same effect, that it will be an oxygen. It will move oxygen away if you put this inside of it and you throw it at an open flame. It will break. The mixture will make a sort of gas that will push the oxygen away, and that can extinguish a flame. And that is something that they used to do in like Victorian times, and a little bit after that, as an improvised extinguisher that you just throw inside of the fire. Another thing you can do is use a bottle as a blockade for cars. If you are tired that somebody is always taking your parking space or standing at places where with their car that they're not should be, you can use bottles as a sort of road blockade. It can also be used against invading forces. So what you do is just take some bottles and place them here and there on the road. I can assure you, if you have a car or whatever vehicle with rubber tires and you ride over one of these, there is bound to get a puncture inside of it, and it will deter people from parking at those spaces. If they don't, they will get a flat tire, and it's their own goddamn fault because they should not have parked there. Another thing is animal drinking. It's like the same thing with the plant system, but for animals. If you have some animals, you can just put a cup of water or some plates, or that is a little bit higher, some holes in it, put a bottle there, and the bottle will fill up as long as to the edge of the pot that you put in, and that way you can give your animals, like my guinea pigs, water that way. um, Another thing is target practice. Yeah, if you got the flat glass bottles and if you want to practice a gun, bottles are a great way to do that, because you directly know if you hit the target. It's very cheap, and yeah, you can fill it up with something more sturdy like sand or water to get more visual effect. But it's a good training tool instead of perhaps using some paper that is just a nice clear target, if you want to make it more a little bit more realistic, if you want to choose by shooting a bigger target, or if you want to test your accuracy with a smaller part. Those are things that you can do. Another thing is a piss bottle. I know this might sound strange, but if you are in a situation where you cannot just leave, if you're in a traffic stop, if you are in a during a bug-in scenario or a nuclear disaster or a chemical disaster, you have to stay inside of your house and the toilet is not working, you can use this as a piss bottle. Or if you are bedridden, you're sick and you cannot leave the bed, it's handy to have a piss bottle for every time you have to take a leak, and for the smell, close it off. And this is more handier for men than for women, I know, but for a man, it could be saves a lot of problems, I would say. Another thing is cement filler. If you ever done some building projects, you will notice that a lot of people, especially from the older times, would put glass bottles inside of the buildings. Why? There are several reasons for this. Because it's cheaper for did not have to use that much cement or mortar to use between the how they say between the bricks, and it's some way not only for saving cement, and it's also that the glass would let some a little bit of light through it. So those are two ways that they used it, and especially this use these round bottles because the round bottle will with put the forces around it and make it more stronger that way. I think I'm almost done. Another thing is perhaps is just this just for shits and giggles. You can put a lamp inside of beneath a glass beneath a filled glass bottle, and it will disperse the light. And yeah, it's a little bit beautiful if you want to do a little bit fancy. It's nothing to do with survival, but hey, it's something that's you can do with it. So yeah, and the last thing I would say is reuse glass bottles for filling your water. So instead of always buying a new plastic bottle, use a water filter and fill up these bottles just to take at work, if you're going on a vacation, wherever you go. If you have a glass bottle, I would prefer to use a metal drinking bottle, but a glass bottle is quite as good, and it's better for the environment if you refill it with a water filter. So yeah, if you know some other things you can do with a glass bottle for survival purposes, please let me know in the comments. I'm always eager to learn. I hope this video helped you a little bit with some new ideas. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you in the next video. Cheers.